I wonder how Kizuna's doing.
I'm sure she's fine. If I had to take a guess, I bet she's fishing too. You should have learned some survival skills from Kizuna when you had the chance, Risha.
Yes, I know. I was just thinking the same thing too.
Greetings once again, my friends, and welcome back to Geek News Anime Night, where we take a particular season of anime. We dissect it episode by episode and give our highs, our lows, and everything in between. I'm your host, Adam Mickelson, aka Drac. I hope everybody's having an awesome day or night when you're listening to this. And joining me, obviously, is my wife, Andrea. Andrea, it's time. It's time for us to end this thing, kind of.
Mm-hmm.
But how can you do that if the last episode was just such an epic season finale? Honestly, I don't know if this actually did happen in the manga or if this is just an anime-only episode, but I do actually think this worked towards the ending. Would you agree or disagree?
I think it's just a nice wrap-up.
So, at that point, we are talking about episode 13, Flowers Offered in Recollection. And this is, if people remember, the world, or the two crews got separated, because now that, Naofumi's crew has handled the task of avenging Ost and recollecting the Spirit Tortoise's essence, they got sent back to their world, leaving Kizuna and Lark and Therese and Glass all in their world. Mm-hmm. And so at that point, we have two different perspectives that are being told to us via this episode. We have Kizuna's perspective, or Kizuna's world's perspective, and then Naofumi's world perspective. Mm-hmm. Both with specific goals in mind, but also try to fill in some of the gaps that there may have been. And the first one we start off, actually, is with Kizuna, because I guess her and Yomogi have become super best friends, even though Yomogi should have been killed off. It's been, I think they try to make it sound like it's been years since the fight with Kyo. And Kizuna and Yomogi are basically just at a river fishing. And Yomogi asks a question that we all kind of were interested in, because it kind of got addressed, is what were you doing in the Infinite Labyrinth before Naofumi showed up? And we actually got the tale of like when she got put into the Infinite Labyrinth in the first place. And it's kind of a sad tale. It's basically the Castaway tale that everybody's seen numerous times. She is trying to keep herself sane by talking to herself, and eventually she creates a Wilson-type parody, basically a ball with a face on it. And she starts talking to it so that she doesn't go insane, and she just tries to keep herself alive and tries to find a way out, and isn't very successful at that. And they even go as dark as trying to show that Kizuna did actually consider suicide at one point, because she just felt like she couldn't get out. Every time she thought, like, just to give you guys a couple of examples, she thought she could go past, like, a certain point in the ocean, and she would be out of there and into another world. Turns out there was an invisible wall in the ocean, so she had to row herself all the way back. She literally made a boat and oars and just rowed all the way out there and then had to row all the way back. Then she also gets kind of frustrated that the food isn't tasting as good, and so at that point she's trying to figure out. When she's depressed, she's just kind of mulling over the fact that it's all disgusting and there's not really anything you can do about it. And then ultimately she then resolves to like basically boil up some salt water to get some salt, and that makes the fish taste better. She then just starts going and exploring the island and helping herself survive. And then the day came when Naofumi and crew landed in the Infinite Labyrinth, and the rest is history. What did you think about her perspective? I thought it was just kind of the default Castaway kind of story.
Yeah.
Where she just does everything to survive. I'm kind of surprised her outfit survived as long as it did, considering that, most of the time in like Castaway stories, like everything's tattered by that point.
Pretty much.
What did you think about the whole committing suicide?
Well, I wouldn't have been.
That's probably the darkest that this goes.
Mm-hmm.
And even then she can't do it. She has issues with it. And so at that point we get that story, which then leads into a story with Yomogi and how she's trying to remember good stories about Kyo and trying to remember Kyo smiling, but not because he's sadistic, but instead because he's a real friend. And I personally think that's a pointless venture, but she wanted to do it. And I think it's just because the writers wanted to keep Yomogi somewhat loyal to Kyo, but I don't see the point because he was a bastard. And that's Kizuna's tale primarily. Like, we get little flashes here and there of the other people in that world kind of putting everything back together, and that seems to be helping. But the rest of it is with Naofumi and crew, where they are basically I think they landed in just regular Melremark when they came back at that Dragon Hourglass, and so they were way off from the Spirit Tortoise, and they start making a trek to what remains of the Spirit Tortoise to give a proper send-off to Ost. And we have a couple of shenanigans there. Philo actually got used to the fact that she was a smaller bird in the other world, and so she could fly. And in this one, she can't really do that, but she tries to make it happen, and everybody's like, "No, you're gonna destroy the cart!" Every time she tries to make an attempt.
It's sad that she's like, I want to fly again.
Yes, so it's Philo being Philo.
Mm-hmm.
We also do find out that when Naofumi and crew were dealing with the other wave created by Kyo, that wave also hit their world as well. And thankfully, Motoyasu, Itsuki, and Ren all stepped up to handle it. And Naofumi is kind of cynical about it. He thinks that the only reason they did it was to salvage their reputations, because they had been sullied after not helping with the Spirit Tortoise initially and then getting captured. And I think part of that's true, but I also think maybe Naofumi's starting to rub off on them. But
Probably.
Time will tell, because we didn't really see any dialogue between them. It was just kind of a narration. So we wouldn't know until the next season if that's the case. So we have that kind of resolution. So thankfully their world was saved from the wave. Sorry, I was looking for the word. Then we get to have a weird shenanigan conversation where we get taken back to the first night that Ost stayed in the war camp with everybody. And apparently, you remember this conversation, right? Where she was basically saying if people really like Naofumi that much, they just seduce him. And then I completely forgot about this, but Raftalia and Philo are just like, what do you mean? And Rishia knows what she means. And that's why she keeps on going, da, da, da.
Yeah, because she's like, we shouldn't get into
it. And so we actually get a much more detailed look at that conversation, which Rishi is not happy about in the wagon. Rishi was happy about it, Raftalia wasn't. Because Ost basically goes over and whispers into her ear, and we're guessing that it's basically a lot of really compromising sexual acts. Mm-hmm. And Raftalia, it does not understand at all, because she keeps on saying, like, put what, where? And not really understanding any of it. And Risha is just like, stop! I don't need to have this conversation. And then Philo's feeling left out. So, of course, she's like, I want to know what they're talking about. And the best part of this whole thing is Ost goes down and whispers in her ear. And I love all of the whispering is just, like, from the voice acting perspective, it's just whisper, 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 whisper. And Philo's just like, oh, mating. And that freaks out Rishia and Raftalia even more. But Philo, I just found it so funny that Philo got it better than the other two teenage girls out of that. That was hilarious to me. And so that creates a little bit of a situation between Rishia and Raftalia. We also get to have another moment, and I think this is explained by Kizuna, but we also, if you remember, when Naofumi and crew landed in Kizuna's world, they had to go and get new outfits, right?
Oh, yeah.
And so we actually get more detail on that, where Kizuna, being a very creepy teenager, decides to take Raftalia to the back and find an outfit that she thinks will impress Naofumi for Raftalia. And this is kind of creepy because, again, this is Raftalia in her 7 or 8 year old form. And so at that point, it's like, she really shouldn't be doing that. And so we go through like this outfit montage of all of the different things that they could, like they do like an Asian princess, then they do a full-on samurai.
It's also like teenage girls like wanting to try on so many outfits.
Pretty much. And then it gets super creepy because we basically have all 3 in bikinis. And I have no problem saying this. Kizuna is not a bikini girl. She doesn't have the body built for it. And I did not like the fact that the camera decided to stay a little too long on child Raftalia. And somehow they put Rishia in a string bikini and made her look like her boobs were a lot bigger than the series had basically shown us thus far.
Oh, yeah.
Am I wrong in that? She got, for some reason, like, she was like the Grinch, and her boobs grew 3 sizes that day, honestly.
Oh, yeah.
Am I wrong about that? Like, she's about, I'm sorry, but the one that's probably the most blessed bosom-wise is probably Raftalia.
Mm-hmm.
And Rishia, not so much. And somehow she ended up in the string bikini, and she apparently has double D's now. I don't know why. And so, yeah, that whole thing was just kind of creepy, but it's one of those anime tropes that they like to have, where you have the shopping montage, and of course one of the girls is super creepy, and so she tries to get them to try on a bunch of stuff that they normally wouldn't wear, and it's all fan service for anime fans, which, sorry guys, sorry people, I have to say this, 80% of the demographic is male, so... And then there's a tiny demographic that is also very creepy female. So, yeah, what were your thoughts on both the Oast conversation as well as the shopping montage?
Well, it's not a surprise you'll have at least one of those type of episodes.
The montage was uncomfortable for me. Was it uncomfortable for you, or were you just giggling the whole time?
I thought it was kind of funny, but at the same time, I want to be like face-palming.
Yep. I remember you face-palming. I remember that. And then the Oast conversation.
That was uncomfortable, I'm sure.
Yes, for everybody involved, except for Philo. That was funny.
Uh-huh.
It's like, wow, she understands better than Raftalia. That's kind of funny. And so we get all of these on the way to the remains of the Spirit Tortoise. We finally make our way there. And they have like this, I want to say it was lilies, like this bouquet of lilies that they decided to throw out into the open field that is what the Spirit Tortoise's remains have become. And so we get to have a nice little montage about Oast. And at the very end, while they're walking away to go home, Naofumi turns back as if he's feeling something, and he sees Oast. And Oast is like waving him goodbye.
Mm-hmm.
Because it's just once again a reminder that she has given him a tool that will allow him to not have to use the Wrath Shield anymore. And so he has a nice moment where he kind of turns around and does the backwards wave at her.
Yeah.
And that's how this season ends. So, episode 13, what did you like about it?
Just some of the things that they kind of filled in, like some like the behind the scenes stuff that we didn't really explore.
If you had to pick one, which was the one that you were more interested in knowing about?
Probably the Infinite Labyrinth.
And what Kizuna was doing.
Yeah.
I think that was a big gap to fill. So I'm happy that they did it. The other stuff is just kooky anime shenanigans, and while I do find some of it funny, I just, it just doesn't hit the way that it used to. Like, it's not, to me, it's not like, oh, wow, this is strangely arousing. It's just like,
It wasn't that important.
Yeah, it really wasn't. I think that there was some importance to Kizuna in being able to show, like, what she went through, but after that, not really a whole lot of relevance. Although the end with Naofumi and Oast was pretty good. I did like that because that's the other thing that is kind of hinted at in this episode, is that they needed to find something to remedy not having to rely on the Wrath Shield, and Ost gave that. So I did like that in the end. But yeah, I kind of agree with you. The Kizuna stuff was relevant. The rest was just kooky anime shenanigans. Any other positives?
No, not much.
Okay. What did this episode do wrong? Making your fans feel uncomfortable. Okay, just me.
Well, I just find it funny they call it the Infinite Labyrinth when really it's just an island.
I think they call it an infinite labyrinth because it's just because of the fact that it's sealed off. I don't like the name of it either, but I think that's just why they call it, because it's just sealed off from the other worlds. That's my guess, though. So, okay, any other negatives?
It's just kind of also too bad, though. You didn't even get a scene of, like, how she ended up getting transported there.
I would have liked for them to move the clock back about a couple of months and just showing us what on earth she did.
Yeah, though.
Because I think we got the hint that Kazuki was involved with her being sent to the Infinite Labyrinth. I don't remember 100%, but I think he was involved. So it would have been great to be able to see like what actually did.
Like what she did. Like, was there like some kind of a trial involved, and then she ended up getting sent there, and how?
No idea.
You know, so it's just
it would have been cool to have like the clock go back like a month or two and see it, but
well, yeah, but you just see her there.
I think it also would have helped to see Glass's reaction to it and see her like exhaustively searching, because all we have to go on that is that she's so happy to see Kizuna again. But I think it would have actually added on to it, as if not only you showed how she got into the Infinite Labyrinth, but then you tried to show like Glass trying to find her, maybe going over to her house and cleaning, because Kizuna noticed when she was interrogating Yomogi that everything was still clean.
That's true.
So we're guessing that the three of them came to clean every now and again. I think that would have been a great thing to do, but they didn't do it. So for you, it's just like the possibility of other stories to tell.
Or at least kind of explaining the situation of how she ended up there and all that.
The other thing, too, that I also like that I was kind of worried about from episode 12, since I thought the katana vassal weapon was bound to that world, I didn't think Raftalia would be able to keep it. And it turns out she still has it. And I like that, because I like the fact that they gave her something to put her on equal terms with Naofumi, as opposed to the slave crest stuff. I think now we're going to start pushing past that. Mm-hmm. It'd be great to see Rishia get rid of hers, but that's me. So I like the fact that she's still going to have a vassal weapon. Philo's still going to be Philo, and maybe we'll get to see some vassal weapons in their world. I don't know. They teased at the 7-star heroes. So, all right. So I think we've gone over the positives and the negatives. Out of 5, what would you give? What's the name of it? Flowers offered in recollection. Sorry. 3.5.
Yeah.
It's like right down the middle. I would actually say that the previous episode was a much better episode to end on.
But
by
it was
taking out Kyo.
Yeah, but it was nice to kind of wrap things up.
Yeah, this is one of those anime additional things that just kind of helps. I will say this, when we started it up, I was worried it was going to be a clip show, and it was just going to try to do a summary of the entire season, and that was not a good idea. I'm glad it went where it did, and it just tried to fill in details instead of just trying to tell us the whole story all over again. But at the same time, it's maybe when I'd have to compare it against the previous episode just did a lot better.
Yeah, maybe they were some additional things that they would have wanted to show,
right?
But couldn't figure out a way to put it in the original episode. So maybe they decided they kind of put some of that stuff together in put it as a kind of finale sort of thing.
Yeah. So, and what did you say your score was?
About 3.5 as well.
3.5. So that's going to go ahead and do it for this episode. Now, if you're brand spanking new to these podcasts, when we finish something up, here's how that kind of goes. We are basically going to take a week or two and let this season kind of sink in. And now that we've seen it as a whole, and then we will come back and we will wrap up Shield Hero Season 2 and give our final thoughts on it, whether or not we think it was a good season, whether or not we think it is a bad season. I have a feeling there's going to be a lot to say about that. But when we come back with that, you will get the finale to Shield Hero Season 2, and then we will move into the next series, which we will reveal in that episode. So thank you guys so much for listening and joining us on this journey. If you're brand spanking new and on YouTube, feel free to like and subscribe. It definitely does help out with the channel. You could also do that on podcasting platforms, either Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Amazon Podcasts, Player.fm, or Spotify. All of them are there. And you can be able to leave a like and review. We definitely appreciate those as well. And we will see you guys next time as we wrap up Shield Hero Season 2.